Time for the only radio show of its kind. Auctioneers of antiques, collectors of cool, veterans of vintage. It's the Donnelly Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer. For the next hour, enjoy great information about buying and selling antiques and collectibles, and some interesting stories. Now, the Donnelly Auctions Hour.
Welcome to the Donnelly Auctions Hour. Thank you for joining us. We are here every Saturday from 1 to 2 p.m. Just say, Alexa, play the Donnelly Auctions Hour on AM 560. Hi, I'm Susan, and I am here with Randy Donnelly. We are the owners of Donnelly Auctions in Union, Illinois. We're just 60 miles west of Chicago, not far, right down I-90. Come see us out by the Wild West town. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Susan. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about something.
Yep, toys.
This week we're talking about
antique toys.
Antique and vintage toys, too, because I think that is something everybody probably has.
Well, and you know what's interesting, of course, we keep stressing this on our show from week to week, that sometimes it doesn't have to be antique to be collectible.
And valuable,
and
right.
sometimes antique gets too old for people, and prices can drop. But
can you tell us real quick the difference between an antique toy and a vintage toy? Give us those years so people know what we're referring
Susan,
to.
I don't know that is a hard line in the sand. Antique toys was what we commonly refer to as the old cast iron like arcade type toys and everything, and Hubley and that. But toys go all the way back, into the 1800s, of course. But I would have to say what we consider antique pretty much ends at World War II.
Okay.
And so from the 40s, 50s, 60s, we start to refer to that more as vintage rather than antique.
So all the toys I played with are considered vintage. How did that happen?
Actually modern, I'm sorry.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't think they even
happen?
fit into vintage at your age.
Well, let's touch base real quick. How is everything going at Donnelly Auctions this week?
Wow, it's crazy week because we've got an auction leaving and another one going and or coming rather,
right.
And it's always chaos. We have so much stuff walking in the door from the radio show. Actually,
I know. Thank you to our listeners out there that are calling us.
Last week we talked about guns and the upcoming military auction, which is in May. And, of course, a gentleman walked in with just an absolute beautiful engraved Colt pistol.
I couldn't believe it.
That'll be in this auction.
Yeah.
But everything, I mean, the craziness, we mentioned military vehicles that we're looking for anything in old vehicles. The gentleman walked in with a tail section of a World War II German aircraft. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I don't have the whole airplane, but I got a part of one.
We'll take that.
And I'll tell you, fragments do just fine, especially when it comes to aircraft.
So that auction you're talking about, those items will be in our May 19th or 20th Guns and Military auction.
Sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, Sunday, March 12th, is the kickoff of our vintage license plate auction. The lots start closing at 9 a.m. So it's been online for over a month now.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it the kickoff. I'd call it the end.
The kickoff of the end of it.
It's been up for a week already,
so
or a month. It's been a month.
You got to get your bids in by tomorrow. So you can go to DonnellyAuctions.com and click on the vintage license plate auction and get your bids in now.
Sure.
Tell them about the phonograph auction next weekend.
Oh, my gosh. A great auction coming up with antique phonographs and music boxes and records, parts, just anything and everything. We've got about 3 different collectors' collections all going up at the same time. But we're selling all kinds of stuff that's not necessarily even phonographs. We've got vintage guitars and amplifiers, ham radio equipment. The radio selection is phenomenal. Just some really great radios. And again, one of the last collections that we picked up, a radio collection, just a couple days ago, was due to this radio show.
Right.
Somebody called us from Arlington Heights and said, hey, I've got a basement full of this stuff.
And she sent us photos, and we're zooming in on the corners of that room. And oh, my gosh, we found some great stuff. I said, we got to get out there. So we have the Arlington Heights collection that we're getting online this week. That auction is March 18th. It's a Saturday. It is live, so you can come to our facility.
Sure.
And you can also bid online if you'd like to stay in your pajamas and bid from your house. You're more than welcome to do that.
You bet. But, today, we're going to actually be talking about toys. And, what's interesting about toy collecting to me is that there's so many different fields of toy collecting. I mean, you're looking at, the earliest of toys, being tin wind-ups or tin toys and wind-ups and everything, cast iron, but all, trains, banks, robots, mechanical toys. I mean, there's so many different toys that people actually, they can't, in most cases, they don't just collect everything. They will
very specific
collectors.
Yes,
again, not only in trains. I mean, trains breaks into so many different categories: pre-war, post-war, HO. I mean, you name it. And the same is with cast iron. There's some people only collect the cars, others collect the motorcycles. Oh, what about farm equipment? So there's so many different specialties. But toys also, just branches into so many areas, because not only the common things we know, like, dolls and toy cars and everything, but, even pedal cars, bicycles, marbles. I mean, all these fit into the, toy category.
One thing we want to mention, too, is advertising. Do you remember that advertising piece we had of that little boy in front of a pedal car? Now that you brought up pedal cars, that was a great piece of advertising, and it sold very well. So, again, we want to mention not only toys, but the advertising of toys is also very collectible today.
You bet. There's so many crossover fields when you're collecting antiques because the advertising of all the toys, again, not only appeals to the toy collectors, but the advertising people also.
That's right. So today we have a special guest in our next segment, so don't go anywhere. His name is John Betts. He is a toy expert. So we're really going to focus on some antique and vintage toys because he knows a lot about that.
He sure does. He's been a friend of mine, ours, for years, and he's been a good good source of information for us. I mean, he's just been so helpful and so giving of information. That's what I love about our consigners is so
I
often,
honestly think that he likes Tucker more than us, though. Tucker, our dog.
Yeah, if you haven't been to the auction house, Tucker the auction dog is. I think he's the most popular part of the operation.
He's more famous than we are. Yes,
yeah,
that's for sure. But anyway, just recapping on exciting things happening at Donley Auctions this week. We have a popcorn collection, vintage popcorn machines, tins, boxes, burlap sacks, advertising. That auction is online only April 1st, April Fool's Day. And then, of course, we will be touching base again today on our Spring Classic that's coming up at the end of April, and that's what we want to focus on is a section of that auction is going to be dedicated to toys.
That's correct.
So we want to tell everyone out there what to look for, what's of value, what's collectible today, what do you have, what do you need to get rid of. We're here to guide you and offer services at Donley Auctions.
Right. And call us at 815-923-7000. Don't hesitate to call or email us at Donley Auctions
at Outlook.com.
Yeah,
and it's Donley, Donley. So what people have been doing since we've been on the radio is sending us an email with some photos. It doesn't have to be a photo of every single item. It can be a photo of the room, like the woman in Arlington Heights sent us a photo of the room, and we were able to zoom in and see all the different things she had. It was set up beautifully. Same thing with you got a group of toys, just send us a photo of it. Sure. We'll be able to look at it.
And it's sometimes just as easy for you to take a photo with your phone nowadays and text it.
So much easier.
Oh, but you can't text it to the 7000 number. That's a landline.
Call us first, and we'll give you the secret phone number to text it to.
Number,
That's right. Because we do want to make it easier on everybody. It can be overwhelming sometimes with all your stuff. So if you give us an idea of what you have, we'll be able to give you an honest valuation and give you next steps on what to do with those items. Should it go on auction? Do you keep it in the family? Or, do you sell it on Craigslist? Who knows? But anyway, back to the auctions coming up and how to bid in an auction real quick. How do you bid an auction? There's 3 ways. You can come live to our facility if it's a live auction.
That's my favorite.
We
love
when you guys come out to our auction house.
Out to the facility. Yes. You get to see who and what we are and the scope of our operation.
And it's not just, a normal auction hall. We have tables and chairs. We have heat. We have air conditioning.
It's a social event.
We have free food. That's for sure. The second way is an absentee bid. You can get that off of our website at DonleyAuctions.com, or you can submit a phone bid. Same thing. The form is online at DonleyAuctions.com. And I take phone bids for people on your behalf. It's if I'm bidding for you and you're just on the other end of the phone telling me where to go from there.
That's very easy.
It's very easy to do. 3 ways to bid in our auctions. Go to DonleyAuctions.com. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 auctions coming up.
Right.
At least. We got several more
But if you have toys at home, stay tuned for this program because we're going to tell you how to consign your toys and get them up at auction.
Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. John Betts coming up, our special guest today. You are listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here on AM 560, The Answer.
They've been called auctioneers of antiques, collectors of cool, even veterans of vintage. And they can introduce themselves. Thanks for listening. This is the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. I'm Susan. I am co-owner of Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois, here today with my partner, Randy. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Susan.
We're talking today about antique and vintage toys, and our special guest today is our good friend and consigner and a buyer. He's an all-around kind of guy, John Betts from Woodstock, Illinois. He is a former partner of a company called Retro 123, which made 1/8 scale models of some amazing trucks and cars and buses. But you know what? I don't even want to call those toys, do you? Those are not toys.
No, they're scale models.
Models. Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, John, one thing I love about having you on the show today is that, you're not only a collector, you've bought and sold all these fabulous items over the years, and you specialize a lot in these antique toys, but you're also a manufacturer. How many people really can say that? You are so well-rounded in this industry. It's an incredible resume you have.
Well, to go one step further, I designed every model that Retro 123 ever sold, and I've designed toys for other toy companies. So
incredible.
40 years of doing this. It started actually designing collectibles for companies. Well, I don't even know if you're going to know these names. The Bradford Exchange, UNESCO, and
of course,
Department
sure.
56.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, once collectibles kind of fell out of favor, I started designing toys. And one thing led to another, and it's been my entire adult life. It's been interesting.
What kind of toys were you designing, John? I've seen your workshop. I've seen your building. Tell everyone what kind of toys you design.
Well, I got to back up a bit. First of all, the average toy in the U.S. market lasts in the market for less than 12 months.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Really?
Yeah, it's that hard. And the problem is with today's consumer, out of sight, out of mind, and they're always onto new things. Things don't hold your attention like they used to back when we were kids. I am fortunate in that respect by if you were to go to Google and type in Geo Safari motorized solar system, you're going to find a toy that I created for a company called Educational Insights, and I did that in 2000. And you can still buy it today at Walmart, Amazon, Target, retailers all over the country. That toy's been around for 23 years. That's the exception, not the norm, because I've done a lot of other toys, and they haven't lasted a year.
Wow. I was still just last night when we were doing research, we came across the hula hoop Back after the war in 1946, when the hula hoop came out in about 1958, I guess Whammo had it,
right,
and they sold like 25 million in 4 months. But right after that, even though it continued to be a toy that sold for years and probably still sells today, I mean it was done. I mean, the big surge was over, and they were on to other things. You're 100% right.
Right.
But then, conversely, look at Monopoly, look at Candyland, look at Operation. Those are called evergreens, which means they never go away.
Wow,
and
that's interesting. Evergreens.
Yeah, well, and it's a whole different dynamic today than it was even when I was a kid growing up.
Uh-huh.
I read real quick. I just read in my research last night. The original Monopoly game sold for $147,000.
Yeah,
the original Monopoly game.
And I'm surprised there isn't more than that. I mean,
it probably should be. Who's got one in their basement? Go check.
Yeah.
Everybody's running to their basement, to the shelves right now.
And you know what's funny, too? When you think of Monopoly, do you know how many derivatives there have been made? There's been Monopoly based on Chicago, Detroit, Miami, New York. I mean, they just keep reiterating it, and it's never going to end. But then there's some other toys where they got a shot at one run, one and done. Well, and that's...
Today, let's try to help our listeners with what they might have in their basements and garages or rec rooms or whatever. Let's think about this. What kind of toys should they be looking for? So many things have unfortunately gone down in value in the collecting world. But what's really hot right now that people should be looking for?
You know what never goes away? Space.
Oh, you got that right. Robots are so hot.
And the funny thing about space, especially space from the 1950s and going into the 60s, before space became real, it was imaginative.
Right, it was science fiction. Exactly, yeah.
Right. I always like to say it's not a real rocket ship if it doesn't have rivets. And that's... Well, because that's what it was before NASA showed up with their sleek, bullets, and it just captivated. Here's an interesting thing. Back in the 50s, there were space kids and there were cowboy kids, and the cowboy kids outnumbered the space kids probably by 20-1. Now you fast forward 50, 60 years, and the cowboy kid is long gone. But the space kid's here. But what makes those space toys so rare is that they didn't make as many cowboy toys.
Right.
Or they made more cowboy toys than space toys.
Mm-hmm. Supply and demand.
So they're rarer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
John, did you design space toys and robots yourself?
Actually, what I did with Retro 123, we made a set of Flash Gordon rocket ships.
I remember that.
I do remember that, yes.
Actually, didn't we have one of those in one of our auctions?
You did. You did.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm pretty sure it sold for double what we sold it for.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, John, because
I'm glad too.
The Retro 123, unfortunately, our listeners can't visualize. I hope they go to their computers and look up what a Retro 123 scale model cars and everything look like, because your quality was phenomenal. Absolutely every detail and perfection. And when we had an auction, actually somebody you had sold your Retro 123 to ended up consigning their collection to our auction. And, I mean, we had vehicles going for, $14,000, $8,000, $9,000.
Right.
And what did those originally sell for?
The most... To backtrack, we started in 2001. This is a funny story, as a matter of fact. My first show that I did with Retro 123, with the first two models we created, was 3 weeks after 9/11.
Ooh, bad timing.
Didn't even know that anyone was going to show up to the show. If you remember, planes weren't even flying in the air.
Right.
And We survived until 2010 when the Great Recession took a lot of people out of the game, including us, because quite honestly, half my customers disappeared. But in those 10 years, we created 42 models. And the most expensive model we ever made, you've had at least one at your auctions, was the Aaron's Fox fire engine.
Yes. I was just looking at that today.
That fire engine, it was the most expensive model we ever made, and it was $3,250.
Wow.
And we only made 70 of them. Everything we did was low run, and it was for the collector. These weren't to be played with. This was...
Sure.
Well, one customer, matter of fact, who consigned with you, he filled his entire conference room with our collection.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering what he did with those.
That's the kind of product this was.
Incredible.
But for everything to sell for 4, 5, 6 times what we were making it for,
what an investment.
A period of, 5 years?
Yeah.
That's right.
Incredible.
Hey, John, will you be...
That's a hell of a mutual bond.
Yes, it is. And will you be able to stick with us for our next segment? We'd like to keep talking to you, John. Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue talking about antique and vintage toys, a little bit about your experience of selling and buying at Donley Auctions. We love to hear your stories. And Randy, what else do you want to talk about in our next segment?
Well, we'll touch base with a few more toy-related items. I really have so much to talk about and so little time. We need to go 2 hours. I mean, this 1 hour stuff is just not enough.
But don't go anywhere. John Betts coming up next with more stories about vintage and antique toys. You are listening to the Donley Auctions Hour here every Saturday at 1 o'clock on AM 560. The Answer.
You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. Thanks for sticking with us during that break. I'm Susan, and this is Randy Donley. We're with Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois, and our special guest today is Mr. John Betts from Woodstock, Illinois. He is our resident toy expert, well-rounded man with lots of experience. Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hi, how are you?
John.
Hey, Randy.
Yeah, John, it's always good to talk with you again. But over the break, you were mentioning something I found really interesting, and I of course, think our guests will, about how after World War II, explain what you were telling me about all these big high-tech engineers became toy designers.
Well, that happened. Most people don't realize this, but during the 1950s, the best toys, mechanized toys, battery-operated or tin friction, they were either made in Germany or they were made in Japan. And there was a reason for that, because after World War II, the Allies did not let those countries have military industries, producing tanks and rockets and fighter jets and all that. So all of these engineers were out of work. And a lot of them wound up at toy companies, and they told their bosses there, hey, Siegfried, this airplane that we've been making for years, with a couple of gears, I can make the doors open, I can make each propeller run individually, and I can make the landing gear go up. And that's what happened. All these great minds wound up in the toy industry because they had nowhere else to go, and they started making toys like you wouldn't believe.
So suddenly the simple little toy that maybe was a pull toy or a simple friction toy or something became way much more because we had great designers, great minds putting their effort into making them. Wow. That's really interesting.
There's another funny aspect to all of this, too. If you can find a toy worth pulling apart, because I don't recommend doing it to a nice toy, but if you can pull an old friction toy apart, say from the 1950s, that was made in Japan or Germany, there's a good chance you're going to find out it's an ex-beer can or detergent or soap tin that wound up as scrap metal at the factory that made detergent, because toy companies would dumpster dive their garbage for scrap metal because they weren't given access to metal because they were considered low priority.
Wow.
So they literally built with scraps.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I can't believe you're bringing that up because I had to repair a toy, several years ago, and I was shocked when exactly that. The outside of it was a Donald Duck, all painted up and looked great. I opened it up, and the inside of the tin was, in fact, just what you're saying. It had been printed for a different purpose, and it was recycled tin. Really interesting.
And that was not the exception. That was the norm because they were considered low priority.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, one other thing. Do you remember about 20 years ago at the toy shows, all the Japanese were coming in from Japan and the Europeans were coming in to like the Chicago Toy Show at Kane County?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what people don't realize is that back in the day when they had to rebuild those countries, they weren't allowed to keep the toys that they built in country. They had to export them for dollars. And that's why a lot of Japanese people would come over here to buy toys they were denied as kids.
Well, again, you're spot on in bringing that up because, at Donnelly Auctions, of course, we have buyers from all over the world checking in with us. Our online presence is phenomenal, and so many items that we sell are constantly going overseas.
When you guys were talking about taking things apart, just to give you an idea of the age difference between the three of us. When I was little, we used to take apart the Stretch Armstrong doll. That's what we were tearing apart.
Well, and you were just talking about your one of your favorite toys, is the 8-ball.
Yeah, my favorite toy was the Magic 8-ball. Remember that, where you shake it, turn it over, and it gives you the prediction of actually a yes. You ask it a yes or no question, and it gives you an answer. So mine, as a child, I would always ask, "Does Scott like me?" And it would say, "Don't count on it." And I'm traumatized from the Magic 8-ball growing up.
Tell me what you said. This shocked me. What's actually in the 8-ball?
When they first invented it in 1946, they had to float it with molasses. It was the only thing that could get that little dye in there to float. Now it's just like an alcohol dye, dyed blue.
Yeah, but
so they're still popular today.
Isn't Etch-a-Sketch graphite?
Etch-a-Sketch graphite, too. Yeah, we used to play with that a lot.
Much fun with that.
And that's a lot of the vintage stuff. I don't know if Etch-a-Sketches are still valuable today. I don't know. But we'll talk more about that in our next segment. We're going to wrap things up here with you, John. Is there anything else you want to add? You're very interesting. I love your history stories. We've got about 10 seconds.
I got a ton of them. I'd love to come back.
We'd love to have you back as a guest on one of our other shows down the line.
And hope to see you, John, at our April Spring Classic. As you know, that's
I'm always there.
Our big auction we have two big ones every year. And John is not only a buyer, but a consigner. So I'm hoping, you have great experience with us.
By the way, just so you guys know, I don't even know if you guys know this or not, but you hold the record with me for selling the most expensive rocket ship I ever owned.
Wow.
What? Wow. What a great way to end the show right here.
Yeah.
Thanks, John, for that. I did not know that.
$38,000, but who's,
We'll take it. Who's counting, right? Join us after the break. We're going to continue talking about Donnelly Auctions. You're listening to the Donnelly Auctions Hour every Saturday here on AM 560, The Answer.
And now, more of the Donnelly Auctions Hour on AM 560. The Answer.
We are back with the Donnelly Auctions Hour. Thanks for sticking with us during that break. We had a special guest on today, John Betts. He's our toy expert, consigner, and a seller, and a buyer, and a manufacturer of toys. Wow, was that interesting?
Yeah, he's always got some fun facts.
I love
he'll be back with us.
The history, and that's what I really like to focus on in our shows is the history and the education of collectibles.
One of the things that John was touching on as we were signing off is he brought up the fact that we actually sold for him a kiddie ride, a rocket ship kiddie ride for $38,000.
That's right. It was a kiddie ride.
Yeah.
Not a toy.
Well, but you know what? Again, all these things blend into one another.
They do.
The collecting hobbies. For example, at that auction, we had a large collection of pedal cars. That's how we got into the kiddie rides also, is pedal cars and kiddie rides and everything. It just keeps graduating to the next item, And again, there's so many, many kiddie rides in people's garages and warehouses and everything throughout the Chicago area. So call us because we're getting ready for the big April auction where we do just that. You know, we're talking about toys today, but toys is also something that we do put into our April auction.
That's right.
So if you have a collection of antique toys, antique, vintage, whether it's a collection or a single item, now's the time to get a hold of us, and we'll give you a free assessment of what we think you have and what the value would be and what we could sell it for at auction. So the time is now.
That's right. I think our Friday night auction, we focus on a lot of the coin-operated machines, which those kiddie rides fall into that category. But we also have a complete half a day of toys, which include pedal cars and Buddy L trucks and cast iron toys and
toy trains,
die-cast and trains. And it's just unbelievable stuff that's out there that is still valuable today.
And remember, folks, don't throw away the boxes. I was just
don't throw away the boxes.
I was just in a home where they had separated. They had all their toys on display, so the boxes were in another room.
Oh no!
And I warned them.
Put them all together.
Whatever you do, don't get rid of the boxes. The boxes can be way more valuable.
And the other thing too is don't clean them. Don't clean your toys.
Not necessary.
Yeah, no. Not necessary. Sometimes that can ruin the value as well. So, send us photos.
I've got a quick box story in that I bought a bunch of Heartland horses. Heartland figures are very collectible, the Heartland horses, and I had the original boxes for them, but I had them separated. And I'm looking, I had them set up and photographed, for my resale. And this was before we had the auction hall. And I'm looking for the boxes. Where's the boxes? Where's the boxes? And one of the boys working for us says, "Oh, no, boss, I threw those away. They were old." And I just was like shocked. What can you do? They're gone.
Wow.
They weren't in the dumpster any longer.
To be terrific, you must be specific. Don't throw away the boxes. Don't put tape on the boxes.
Oh, my goodness, no.
Yeah, I remember unboxing one of John Betts's custom-designed Retro 123 buses out of the styrofoam box. I'm lifting it up out of there, and he's got all these little rear-view mirrors and little hood ornaments.
Antennas
I was scared
and everything.
Antennas, yeah. I was like, oh, my gosh, there's so much detail on those. You have to be very careful even taking them out of the boxes. But keep the box, that's for sure.
Well, Susan, people want to know all the time what's collectible today, what's valuable today. And there's so many things that people had purchased and hoped for, someday, one of them being Beanie Babies.
Oh, yes.
There's very few. There are some Beanie Babies that are bringing big money. What's the one that you found, Susan?
The one I found was it's called Peanut. It's a royal blue elephant that I do show sold for $5,000. But those are far and few between. I mean, there's so many Beanie Babies out there.
But some of those earliest Beanie Babies are just crazy valuable. We used to sell Beanie Babies right at the Wild West Town.
I remember.
My mom ran the gift shop at the Wild West Town, and she had a franchise with Ty. And she actually knew Ty Warner, very nice gentleman who was actually a plush toy salesman for her.
Where's he from? Is he in
Oak Brook?
Oh, he's from Oak Brook?
Oak Brook, yeah. And so when she would get a Beanie Baby order in, it would come UPS, big boxes, from the UPS man. And it was so funny. Back during this Beanie Baby craze,
yes,
when the UPS truck pulled in our parking lot at the Wild West Town, there would be 15, 20 cars following the UPS truck. And the minute the boxes came in, all these people would rush in the door and have to, be buying, the Beanie Babies.
That's crazy.
As fast as we would get them in the shop, we would sell out.
Wow.
It was just Beanie Baby mania. It was crazy.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, not a lot of them are that valuable. So
well,
don't
once
send me
again,
pictures of that.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They were so popular. They made so many of them.
Right.
That, it was hard to keep the value going.
That's true. So we're looking for some older vintage valuable toys that you might have in your collection at home.
Yeah, collections too.
Single items, some dolls, some stuffed animals. There's some things out there that are still valuable today. Like I said, the old Monopoly games.
We haven't even started to talk
about Hot Wheels. We haven't even talked about Hot Wheels yet, or comic
dolls.
books.
I mean, think of the early Barbie dolls that have really significant value. I mean, some of those first ones from the late 50s are huge money.
Right. And back, when I was a kid, Light Bright, the vintage Easy Bake Oven, those types of items are still valuable today in the, $100 to $200 range, but still. They're still highly collectible.
It's what people remember and they loved, and they want to still, remember their childhood. So people want to buy back their youth.
That's right. So don't go anywhere. Coming up, we're going to wrap it up with some upcoming auction information for you, how to bid, how to consign. You're listening to the Donnelly Auctions Hour here on AM 560, The Answer.
The Donnelly Auctions Hour continues now on AM 560, The Answer.
We are back with the Donnelly Auctions Hour. We're talking about vintage and antique toys because we have a fantastic auction coming up in April. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Susan. You're right. We have to get you to call us soon now because April is around the corner in auction world, because we have to not only get you to contact us, email us is the easiest, and then we assess. We come out. We have to pick it up, photograph everything, and get it online. So time is of the essence to get into the April auction. But in April, we're not only looking for toys. April is one of our biggest auction. We're talking about toys today, but we're always looking for vintage cars, Petroliana, which is signs, gas pumps, everything else. But Sunday after the show, the day after the show last week, Susan, I went and looked at a 1912 Harley motorcycle.
I remember.
Oh, my goodness. It's something we're trying to get consigned for this auction.
Barn find.
It was a barn find. And what an incredible, complete vintage motorcycle. So if you've got vintage motorcycles, we already have about 10 motorcycles consigned to the April auction, but we need more. So if you've got motorcycles, let us know. And there's all kinds of different interesting things that we put in April.
Yeah, like that Mercedes that's out in the parking lot.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't have to be all that old. We have a 2002 a Mercedes. We've got a 2006 Mercedes.
What a cutie.
We've got some great vehicles, but we even have a 1951 Ford convertible consigned to the auction.
That's right.
But when I leave the show here today, I'm going into Chicago, into the city of Chicago, to consign a large collection of antique silver, and that being sterling silver, candelabras, dinnerware, anything and everything in sterling silver. A person collected high grade silver. We'll be selling that in April. I mean, that's being consigned today. And next week, I have to fly out to New York to pick up a jewelry collection.
Wow.
Real high-end, again, great
items
jewelry.
for April.
You bet.
Again, that auction is April 27th, 28th, and 29th. It's 3 days. It is the event of the year so far. Consign now. Email us at donleyauctions@outlook.com. Send us a few photos. Like I said, tell us what you know, and we will get back to you, within 48 hours with an assessment of what you should do next. And call us at 815-923-7000. If you have any quick questions, we'll be happy to answer those. But again, with the Spring Classics coming up, it's not just toys. It's not just cars and motorcycles. Tell them what else is coming up.
Well, we're always looking for vintage advertising, automatons, nodders, soda fountain, country store items, barbershop items, bars and back bars, carousel animals, kiddie rides, gas pumps, toys, even complete interiors out of stores. We'll sell all the vintage cabinetry and everything. If you've got an old storefront or anything, we get in and we'll sell it all. Even my brother right now is crisscrossing the country. Today he's in California picking items up as we speak. So it doesn't matter where you're at. If you've got great items, we'll get it.
That's right. Give us a call
auction hall
at 815-923-7000. That's DonleyAuctions.com. We hope to hear from you. Thanks for listening. We do have several auctions coming up besides just the April auction. Like I said, vintage license plates tomorrow, Sunday, March 12th. Phonographs, records, and radios, March 18th. Popcorn collection, April 1st. Guns and military, May 20th. I don't know. I think you guys got to come back and listen to us next week. We'll be talking about something else again. That's for sure. For now, I'm Susan.
And I'm Randy Donnelly.
And we'll see you at the auction.
Thanks for listening to the Donnelly Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer. Check out all the latest information on upcoming auctions and collectibles at DonnellyAuctions.com. And while you're there, you can contact someone about buying or selling your collectibles or estates. That's DonnellyAuctions.com.